is our World War II Living History Experience event weekend where we just focus on World War II. We bring our living historians, our reenactors, our interpreters out, and we have special exhibits all focused on World War II today. And we are at the Museum of the Waxhaws in Waxhaw, North Carolina. We've been open since 1992. We're a non-profit museum, so we're not funded by state or town. We're completely independent, and events like this truly keeps our doors open.
Alright, so is there any social media that if anyone wants to come check you guys out online, is there anything y'all have any type of social media?
Yeah, so we have our Facebook page if you look up Museum of the Waxhaws, and also Instagram Museum of the Waxhaws. We cross-post on both. You can follow our website, museumofthewaxhaws.org, but social media is truly the best way to.
Alright, thank you, Megan. So we're going to get over to the living histories later on throughout the video, as well as we do have, I believe, several weapons demos later today and a tactical demonstration as well. So, and I know myself being a reenactor, I can't wait to be a part of that and here at the Museum of Waxhaws. So.
We can't wait. Thank you.
Body cams, I hate them.
Is that what that is? Alright, just let me know. Alright. Hi, I'm Private Steven. I'm with the 21st Independent Parachute Company, and we're at the Waxhaw Museum. And we're portraying the British Airborne Forces during World War II. I'm doing glider infantry. We've got other people doing the parachute corps. And this display is sort of just set up to show off, how members of the British Airborne divisions would have, maintained their equipment and what sort of gear they would have used. We've got small arms over here, personal equipment over there. Here, we've got kind of the mainstay weapons of typical British section. We've got their mainline rifle, the number 4 Lee Enfield, their mainline anti-tank rifle, the Piat projector infantry anti-tank, which would have lobbed a heat shell at tanks from a very short distance. And finally, the Bren light machine gun, the 30-round 303 firing machine gun that was the staple of the British Army all the way to the 1980s. We go over here, take a look at some of.
Heaven holds no place for you.
So here, we can take a look at the British web gear in its completed form. So this is the pattern 1937 web gear made out of a canvas cotton material, very tightly woven, very durable for, the requirements of warfare in the 1940s. A trenching tool, an anti-gas cape rolled up onto the belt to be, used at any point, typically just used for, rain and inclement weather though. Ammo pouches for rifle and grenade, gear, and extra magazines for the Bren machine gun, because each rifleman played a role in keeping the Bren gun firing. Water bottle, about 2 pints of water to keep your soldier hydrated. And finally, a small pack called a haversack at the time. This would have contained a whole bunch of gear, which I will quickly lay out. And through this pack, a soldier in the British Army, both airborne and infantry, would have been able to live off a very basic set of materials for a good bit. This is an additional piece of anti-rain material called a ground sheet, which stays rolled up in the top flap to protect some of this gear underneath, which starts with an emergency tin, just a bit of bitter, nutrient-dense, enhanced chocolate, just to keep a soldier running if they run out of supplies. Underneath that we have just some basic silverware, which consists of a knife, fork, and spoon. Underneath that we have the famous holdall, which was in use in the British Army for a very long time, going all the way back before World War I. You have a shaving brush, razor blade, comb, toothbrush, ointment for minor cuts and bruises, rashes, that sort of thing. Spare leather laces, which being that they're leather, they're probably going to snap at some point, and this brass protector for when you need to polish your buttons. Inside here, packed all so tightly, are your 2 mess tins, which, if this was really packed, you'd have extra rations in there just to keep you going. A bag in order to hold more rations if you need to, you got to keep going as a soldier. A recognition scarf, in order to make sure your allies know you're on their side. Airborne troops drop behind enemy lines, and you want to minimize the risk of friendly fire by showing off your allies who you are. Soldiers on the move are going to hurt themselves a lot with their feet. Foot powder, much like Gold Bond today, keeps the feet going for a long time. You have just a basic towel to keep yourself clean. You have a sewing kit called a housewife, filled with all the basic essential materials you need to prepare your uniform on the fly. Here you have what we'd call today a sterno cooker, but back then called a Tommy cooker. Just a basic, alcohol stove, which could have been used to heat up a quick meal or brew up some tea.
Because the British love their tea.
British do love a brew up. This is what today we call a beanie, but at the time was called a cap comforter. It's just a knit woolen headpiece just to keep warm in colder weather. And finally, every soldier's going to carry at least 2 pairs of socks. They're going to wear 1 pair, but they're going to keep a dry pair in their haversack just in case their feet get wet to replace it. And all that stuff gets fit in this small little container, which gets worn on the back. And behind us we have even more stuff that would have supplied a standard 10-man section of the British Army, ranging from food products to just basic hygienic, pomades and brushes and all. So, if you'd like to learn more, stop by our camp at the 21st Parachute Company. We'd love to talk to you more.
Thank you, Stephen.
Not my pleasure.
All right. This is average. This is what paratroopers have jumped with. Majority of it. They had average paratrooper weighed about 160 pounds, and then they jumped with about 200 pounds of gear, depending on what specialty they had. Right here is the T5 parachute. This is your main chute. Static line jump, hook up, stand up, out the door you go. Right here, which didn't work half the time, is your reserve chute. This is the oh crap handle. Hopefully you pull it if your main didn't open. Let's see. Right here, this fancy little thing is the Griswold bag. It's named after the gentleman that came up with it. Basically your M1 brand goes in it, and it comes apart in 3 pieces, and you would put it together. Everybody was trained on it. And then if you didn't, a lot of the troopers, they did not use the Griswold bag. They would stuff it in between, in their main chute, they'd stuff it down here so they had easy access to it. Right here is the M1 carbine, the paratrooper model, with that would go in here. I don't have a folding stock paratrooper version, but we go in here, and there was also another way to carry the weapon when you're jumping out the plane. A lot of the paratroopers had to be lifted up and shoved into the plane. Right here, they have what they call rigger modified bags, just more way to carry equipment. So this one, just rigger made. You got it hooks to your chute. You're supposed to be able to just disconnect it and run with it. A lot of guys it was chaotic, especially in Normandy. They lost a lot of equipment. Right here is the Mae West vest. So it's got a CO2 cartridge in here. So if that failed, which they did fail a lot, they would try and use this to blow it up. Also, a lot of times they were ditched with these because you had so much gear on. You were gonna drown anyways. But yeah, that's about what the paratroopers would carry. Kitchen sink, we call it.
All right, and what unit are you with?
We are with the 508 Parachute Infantry Regiment. Headquarters company.
Well, hello. How are we doing today?
Good.
That's excellent. So I have a display on the Women's Army Corps during World War II. To start, we're going to go back to 1941. In 1941, they were kicking around the idea that we would probably go overseas and actually have the war become a world war. And they needed to find a way to essentially take the men that were in the non-combatant roles, administration, clerical, mechanics, etc., pull them out of those roles, put them on the front, and then put some individuals in their place to do those logistics and background roles. And they decided, you know, it would be a really good idea if we used women for that. So they kind of kicked that idea around a little bit until December 7th, when Pearl Harbor happened. After Pearl Harbor, the bill was created to establish the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, which would do exactly what I said, which would then take the men that are currently in the logistics and background roles, or like the backbone roles, pull them out, and essentially put them on the front lines, and then the women would go in their place. These women would train at WWII training facilities, such as the one in Fort Des Moines, Iowa, where they would go through basic training just like the men did, with the exception of they would not have any weapons training because their roles did not involve weapons at all. They had over 150 jobs that they could choose from, which I will show you the pages here. This booklet is a booklet you would see at a Army recruitment center, and in it would kind of tell you a little bit about the WWII, things you might be doing. These two pages right here showcase those 150 plus jobs that they could have chosen. Once they were in, they did get paid very similarly to the men. They had the same benefits as the men. In fact, it was all the same, which was kind of groundbreaking for its time. By 1943, they would drop the word auxiliary entirely, and it would just become the Women's Army Corps. There was, like I said, 150,000, or maybe I didn't say this, but there was 150,000 women that actually served throughout the duration of the war. Initially, they thought maybe 1,000 women would sign up for this, but by the war's end, that number was completely blown out of the water. In basic training as well, besides your regular things like drill and ceremony and what have you, they also learned a bit of some self-defense mechanisms, because of course if they're in a dark alley somewhere or something like that, they probably need to find a way to defend themselves. So in this book here, which is the physical training manual for the ladies, there is a section that I love showcasing that shows what they learned, and they learned essentially jujitsu. There it is. They essentially learned jujitsu, as you can see these ladies in this in these pictures here. So they did learn some of that, like hand-to-hand self-defense type situation. On my table here, you have a couple examples of things you would see that women would have, just like their male counterparts. They would eat from rations from time to time in certain situations. They would eat out of their mess kits with their spoons, forks, their canteens, and cups. And then I also have a small collection of more personal items. Some stuff might be issued, like toothbrush, toothpaste, even sanitary products for the ladies, but things that might have been more of a personal purchase, such as books and the like. I also have on my table here this French phrase book. These came in many, many languages, but French, as I throw it at you, sorry. The cool thing about these booklets is that they would have the sentence in English, the phonetic pronunciation, and then the French spelling. And this phonetic pronunciation is more or less the English phonetics that would help you pronounce this. So that way you could try to get around, whether it was using the bathroom, getting down the street, maybe hailing a cab or a taxi, etc. Last but not least, I have on my display here, I'm showcasing a more local hero. Although this woman was originally from Massachusetts, her family did settle out in and around the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Her name was Elizabeth Rice. She was a stenographer that was in the Women's Army Corps from 1943 to August of 45. She actually served in the European Theater of Operations, North Africa, and the Middle East and Mediterranean area. She received a Bronze Star for her work in the North Africa campaign, and she spoke 7 languages and could type 400 words a minute on a standard typewriter, and could type in the hundreds on a stenography machine. Now, the difference between a typewriter and a stenograph machine is a typewriter has, of course, all of the letters. But a stenograph machine, as pictured here, does not have as many buttons or as many letters. Essentially, this was a shorthand typewriter that when you hit selections of certain buttons, it made certain phrases that would then translate into words. So, for example, this is the stenograph machine, which I'm holding upside down. I'm so sorry. It is this way.
Black and white photo.
Yeah, right. when shorthand was written, it would look something like this. So it would look like a selection of scribbles, and these scribbles would translate into full sentences.
Chicken scratch.
This is exactly. This is like when you get a prescription from the doctors and you wonder why it looks this way. I mean, I have no way of proving that that's actual shorthand, but you get what I'm saying. So up here is that shorthand and how it's written in scribbles, and below is what it translates to. So you can see the difference between how little is actually written here and how much it actually says. She was such an expert at this and so good at this that we think that she was more or less voluntold to move to the locations that she went to. But she was a fantastic woman, and it's amazing. This is actually my friend's great aunt, and I like talking about her because I think she's a fantastic woman, and she is just one of those 150,000 that served. Behind me, I have some examples of the uniforms that these women would wear. This was the one that I was originally going to wear today before I realized it was 75 degrees outside.
You're welcome.
This is the in-field uniform. As you can see, it comes with trousers. You have the wool shirt. You also have this wool skirt that goes with this top. There is Class A jackets that go along with this that are green. There's this outfit here that you can actually see these ladies wearing in this photo. They are wearing the same outfit that I am. This does come with a Class A jacket as well, as featured in her picture here. As you can see, she's wearing it. I don't have that. That's why I'm not wearing it. But this is more of a summer edition of the uniform. It's a bit lighter. It's not made of wool. It's a bit thinner. So it made more sense to wear this today. This is also the 43 field jacket. Definitely handy out there. Field boots, as well as the garrison they wore in Europe. This is a Red Cross sweater. This was not a sweater that was necessarily issued, but it was something that was certainly something they could purchase or something they could get, as well as the leggings, the Jeep cap, helmet, and then just like the ladies at the very bottom of this photograph here, where they're wearing their hobby hat, this is also that hobby hat as well. So that's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Wax are cool, women are cool, aka Women's Army Corps.
All right, thank you. I'll have the long version.
Uncut.
My name is Dick Meyer, and I'm part of the OSS detachment here at the Museum of the Waxhaws for this World War II Day. The unit represents an operational group, which is a small operational detachment, very similar to what the Special Forces A team is today. Actually, many of the World War II OGs stayed in the Army and actually started 10th Special Forces back in 1952 under Colonel Aaron Bank, who had been an OG in France. That's the basic history of OGs. Of course, it's quite a bit more extensive. But some of the things we brought here today to show to the public were pretty much unique to operational groups and OSS Army personnel in general in different years of war. This is an example of the Office of Strategic Services escape kit. It consisted of a compass, a hacksaw blade, and a map that was printed on silk. Now you see that compasses are in two sizes. The American is larger, the British is smaller. That was just how the governments tended to produce them. Whether a OSS man got either one of the compasses depended on what was in stock in the field service HQ. Of course, the hacksaw blade, if you get caught, it can be used for cutting through handcuffs, cutting through any kind of rope or wire that you might be tied up with, iron bars, whatever you can do with a hacksaw, you can do with that. Except that, of course, the size has to be small, so it can be hidden. So it might take you a little longer, but it will still work. The map, as I said, was printed on silk. They were made for France, for Italy, and for Yugoslavia. The reason they were on silk was to make them more durable. You didn't have to worry about getting them wet. You didn't have to worry about rolling them up or folding them, getting creases, weakening them, and having them fall apart. The map itself is not what you would use for a tactical situation. The map you would use for a tactical situation would be smaller, so that you can call in artillery or airstrike or plan an attack. This here was strictly for escape. You can look at it, look at a signpost and say, okay, I'm at this point. I want to get to this one up here. You can turn out your compass, or you can just follow the road and make your escape that way. Over here, a couple of OSS weapons. This was called the well rod, the assassination pistol. It was made to be suppressed. Okay, from about here forward, you have the suppressor, or a lot of people call them silencers. And of course, it had the chambers inside to dissipate the gases, and inside we had three what we're referring to as leaves or wipes. It was a solid piece of rubber, and once the first bullet went through, it would make a hole in all of them. So after each succeeding shot, it would get slightly larger. The thing with this pistol is that it was to be used to get up close to somebody, probably by an agent, probably someone you hired who was assassinating a collaborator or a German officer. It's not something you'd actually be using in combat in the field. That kind of stuff, you want to silence a sentry, you're probably either going to use a garrote, or you're going to use a bare hand, or your Faber-Sykes dagger. These pistols.
I mean, I loaded blanks just in case. You never know what's going to happen. We have a script, but
things will go off script.
I know that one kid can get thrown right from the back.
Yep.
Look, down and kind of like
I'll like kind of fall.
Look, like that.
I'll like follow the road a bit.
Yeah. So like go down towards like that tree and then turn that way. Go ahead.
Hand a hawk! And a hawk! Looks like they got one wounded. Yo, come in, see here. Come in, see here.
Ich sprechen Sie Kommandeur. Ich sprechen Sie Kommandeur.
English?
Sie Kommandeur.
Yeah, your big butt. Cards. Just stay right there and just watch this tree line.
Das Krieg ist vorbei für meine Kameraden. I'm not surrendering. I'm not surrendering. I'm just passing it on. Das Krieg ist vorbei für meine Kameraden. Vorder kriegt Nacken.
Water?
Nein.
Hit the. Das ist große Amerikaner.
Escort him back behind lines. Go get him to the aid station. Just kind of help carry him. Like put your arm over his arm. Just give him you're helping support him.
I think that's our cue.